DW Africa Link.
Is Ghana heading towards another energy struggle? Imagine you're at home. You flip the switch, but a light flickers out. The power goes off again. The fridge stops humming. Fans die down, and suddenly, you're back in dumsor. That's a Ghanaian term for rolling blackouts due to insufficient power supply. Well, for many, that is a symbol of economic strain. And indeed, the numbers are alarming.
How much is my salary set? My salary is 1,000 cedis in a month. And if I'm using 1,000 cedis to buy prepaid in a month, how much am I going to spend? What if I have kids? How much am I going to spend on my kids too?
When you make purchases, you realize that every now and then the prices keep on rising. If it continues this way, it will affect a lot of businesses.
Ghana's Ministers of Energy and Finance recently cautioned that by 2027, Ghana's energy sector debt could reach 126 billion Ghana cedis if urgent steps are not taken. That's nearly $9 billion. Now, this massive debt threatens power reliability, hikes up utility bills, and puts jobs and the economy at risk. Meanwhile, Nigeria is also scrambling to refinance close to $3 billion of its own electricity sector debt to stabilize its power industry and boost supply. So, what went wrong, and how can African countries power their future? That's what's coming up. I am Eddie Jr., and you are welcome to Africa Link, the podcast connecting you to the stories that matter.
Africa Link, every week here on DW.
Some experts are blaming the lack of adequate financing for the energy sector, which has slowed progress for years. In Ghana, this challenge could even threaten the country's recently launched 24-hour economy, a plan designed to create jobs and boost economic growth by extending business hours and increasing productivity. Let's break this down with Emmanuel Derek Hache, research and policy analyst at the Institute for Energy Security, that's IES. I also have DW correspondent in Accra, Ghana, Adjoa Tenkroma Domina. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Africa Link. Adjoa, one thing is for sure. Ghanaians don't want to go back to the days of power blackouts. No pun intended. You remember how dark those days were, don't you?
Yes, Eddie, I do remember. And it was hard times for households, businesses, and, the general economy. Because one thing that we have to realize is that electricity is more or less like one of the lifelines of every economy. And if you don't have stable power supply, you are dealing with increasing cost of business for people. You're dealing with even security challenges because when there's light out, a lot of people, take advantage of the darkness to do a lot of things. You find students, suffering from it, so the education sector. So it's cross-sectoral impact of that era of power outages that we popularly refer to as dumsor. And that is what a lot of Ghanaians are afraid that if what we are hearing from the sector ministers, i.e. the Ministry of Energy and the Ministry of Finance, is not dealt with properly and timely, we may get ourselves back there. We do know that before this government started, working somewhere in January, the energy minister actually started raising the alarm way ahead, talking about how the previous administration entered into very high, power purchase agreements, which was coming at a cost or a detriment to the country. And so they had to do a lot of stakeholder consultation and engagement to, speak to some of these IPPs and power generators to ensure that the country is not paying so much more for power. And at the same time, we are able to, tackle some of the challenges we have. So from the beginning of the year up until like March, there was relative, power outage.
A good way to lay it down, Adjoa, for us. Let's go to you, Emmanuel, because for many, they are questioning how we even got here in the first place. So help us out. Why is Ghana's energy debt surging so rapidly? So much so that there's a warning that by 2027, Ghana's debt could reach $9 billion US.
All right. Thanks for the opportunity. And basically, our issues with the energy sector, particularly the power sector, because when we talk about the energy sector, we have two broad sectors, subsectors, that is the petroleum sector and then the power sector. And so what we are talking about as it stands right now is with the power subsector. Most times what we've been experiencing or the issues basically it goes around ECG because they are the major distributor and then they collect the money and then that money is being used to pay those in the value chain, whether it's the generators, whether it is the grid, which is the transmitter or the other sector players.
For those listening, ECG, that is the Electricity Company of Ghana.
Exactly. So the Electricity Company of Ghana. And so for those in the value chain, ECG collects the money, that is the Electricity Company of Ghana, collects the money after they've distributed the power, and then whatever that is being realized is used to pay those in the value chain. The issue that we've got to do with in the previous past got to do with revenue mobilization. And so ECG has not been able to up or improve their revenue collections. And so most times the amount of power that is being given to them to distribute, they distribute it all right, but the revenue that comes of it is not commensurable with it. And so most times there is under revenue mobilization.
What has really led to Ghana's energy debt surging so rapidly? Is it people are not paying their bills, or how did we get to where we are now?
Okay, so in basic terms, we got to this place because ECG, that is the Electricity Company of Ghana, that is being taxed to collect the revenue, is not able to collect that amount of revenue. And so sometimes it is because people are doing illegal connections. Sometimes it's also because there's poor revenue mobilization on the part of ECG. They are not using digitized systems that will be able to track the revenue. And because for example, if you have an enclave that ECG has been able to distribute, say, 50 megawatts of power, they are supposed to know the amount of money that they are supposed to realize from that. And then if at the end of the day, the money that they realize is not commensurable with the 50 megawatts of power that has been distributed, then they should go to know who has been able to utilize the power and has not paid for it. Then they'll be able to go after them. And so ECG for the past years has been experiencing distributional losses close to 30%. And so what it means is that if you give them 100 megawatts of power to sell or to distribute and raise in the revenue, they are able or they'll be able to account for only 70% of it. And so that 30% of it goes with, that is a distributional loss. And that distributional loss emanates from people bypassing the system or other people doing illegal connections, or ECG knows people that are supposed to pay, but they don't go fully after those people. And so these debts compound. And when it compounds that way, you are not able to pay those who have generated the power for you to sell. And so those people definitely are not Father Christmas. And so they will want to go after you. And one measure that they implement is to just say they are going to shut down their power plants. And so sometimes this is what has accumulated for the huge debt in the power sector.
I see. Almost more like a revenue generating problem because someone is not doing their job well. Someone is not making sure that the right steps are being taken to basically get the money back for the energy supplied. So how worrying is the situation currently for the future? Why should we be concerned about this?
Let me tell you for a fact that Ghana has enough dependable capacity. We even have the capacity to be able to export power to our neighboring countries. Because when you talk about the power, Ghana has a dependable capacity of over 4,800 megawatts. And what is our peak demand, the whole of Ghana, at the peak hours of 10 p.m. on daily basis is around 3,788 megawatts. And so it means that you have an excess of about 1,000 megawatts. This 1,000 megawatts can be exported to our neighboring countries. So definitely the issue got to do with money. If you have money, we can turn on all our thermal plants, all our hydro generating power plants, and then the renewable sources. And these three mix gives us a dependable capacity more than even our demand.
Ghana needs the money to be able to deal with a challenge, right? And that's what I want us to hammer a bit more on. First of all, does Ghana have that money, right? The thing that makes this serious is that we're talking about the finance minister, Ghana's finance minister, Dr. Kasia Latoforsen, who described the energy sector as the biggest economic threat currently facing the country. So it makes me wonder, even though load shedding or power blackouts may not be happening currently, that there is the potential for that to happen. How critical is it, and how bad could it get?
Okay, so as we speak right now, the debt has not been fully erased, but government has put in place measures to be able to erase those debts, or those debts to not keep on piling up. Now, one of the measures is to be able to improve the revenue mobilization from the electricity company of Ghana, ECG. How they are going to do that is that they've now mounted up a spirited force where they go after businesses, households, and individuals who are trying to bypass the system. And so they come, they check your metering system to find out whether your metering system has not been tampered with. And when they did that exercise, you realize that a lot of people were caught, people were bypassing the system.
Ajwa, there must be people who, after hearing this and, from time to time seeing their lights go out, that are thinking, again, never again. You've been speaking,
and it's connected because recently there was a 2.45% increment in electricity tariff. In the first quarter of the year, it was a 14.2% increment, which cumulatively, means that this year alone, the cost of electricity has been increased by at least 17%. And as you will predict, a lot of businesses are not happy about it. About 2 months ago, we had the Ghana Chamber of Commerce, coming out to say that, look, currently the cost of kilowatts per hour of electricity that you purchase for Ghana is higher than most of the neighboring countries. And so it invariably increases the cost of production for businesses. And when that happens, the consumer is the one who bears the brunt, because these are just transferable costs. The CATS International, as well as Association of Ghana Industries and the Ghana Union of Traders Association, have all come out to indicate that, look, the country is trying to build a 24-hour economy, and asking businesses to work beyond the usual 8 hours and continue through the night just means that they are going to operate at their full capacity within 24 hours each day. Efforts are being made to solve the problem, but is it enough? That's what a lot of people are asking.
Right. I mean, that's the billion-dollar question. Is it enough? Emmanuel, back to you. Nigeria recently approved a phased refinancing plan for its electricity debt. So Ghana is not the only one that is having or facing mountain debt. Nigeria, like many other African countries, to be honest, are all going through this. But how does the situation in Ghana differ from the situation in Nigeria per your expertise or info?
Okay, so for the situation in Ghana is that Ghana, we do not have that fuel subsidies anymore. What the government will subsidize that would have become a cost to government is being eliminated. But when you go to Nigeria, you realize that Nigeria faces fuel subsidy, and then that becomes a cost to them. And so if you are subsidizing fuel, then you should be able to raise revenue from a different source to be able to, take care of that subsidy. But we as a country, as it stands right now, there isn't that political will to be able to continue offering subsidy. And so I spoke about cost-reflective tariffs. When Ajwa was speaking, he spoke about PURC trying to increase tariffs from one period to the other. Is that we have a quarterly review when it comes to PURC, that PURC is the Public Utility Regulatory Commission. They have a review where they are able to adjust electricity tariffs based on the macroeconomic indicators at that particular point.
Is there anything Ghana can learn from how Nigeria is dealing with its challenge?
And so it is a good thing that we can learn from them because they are trying to restructure their debts. So restructure your debt means that you are doing it in such a way that it gives you a leverage, a briefing period, so that you can pay back in a longer period. And Ghana has equally done the same thing with our independent power producers because most of them are private sector players. And so what do? We went into more or less a gentleman agreement with them and then tell them the framework that we are going to use to be able to pay back whatever debt that we have. And so that is also another good thing that Nigeria is doing. And then Ghana as a country has also undertaken that already. And so restructuring the debt has been done. But it is not only the restructuring of the debt that was accumulating to that debt. There were other factors to it. So those other factors is what the government is also trying to block as a loophole.
Okay. Adjoa, when we talk about energy, there are a lot of people that are talking about alternative sources of energy, renewable energy. Where is Ghana at when it comes to that? And how could that contribute to, having more than enough energy available?
You're absolutely right, Eddie. So Ghana, for instance, on the country level, the country is making some advances towards some renewable energy sources, particularly solar. So we do know that about 94 megawatts of new solar capacity as of 2024 was installed in the country. And that, essentially increased the nation's total solar power capacity, to 246 megawatts. And the country, has a target that by 2030, we hope that the solar will constitute about 10% of the total energy mix. The latest statistics we have seen, on where we currently are was somewhere around 2023, and that was projected around 2.6%. So country level, or let me say administrative or government level, there's a lot of work that is being done. But the other question has to do with its adaptability and whether a lot of Ghanaians, prefer that as an alternative energy source. You can't deny the fact that renewable energy sources is bringing a lot of conversation, and people are interested in how hydropower, for instance, or wind or solar, can also give us electricity, just as mechanical, energy can also give us electricity. But we do know that there is a lot of research currently and trials going on, especially in solar panels.
Right.
That will not only ensure that people can buy it at an affordable rate, but it is also sustainable, because the conversation is always, on how we can make our energy sources more sustainable. Now, in terms of affordability, we do know that solar energy is not cheap. And that is what many people have attributed as a major hindrance to its adaptability. Now, when we are talking about the cost, many Ghanaians look at the upfront cost of, say, securing a solar panel. Because, for instance, if I'm going to have to pay for 1,200 Ghana cedis for an upfront purchase of a panel, and maybe another 1,500 cedis for the installation of it alone, not many of Ghanaians can afford that upfront. And so people will go for the mechanical energy. And usually, alternatively, they will rely on generators, electric generators when there is dumsor. We've not seen much of that these days because the dumsor level has reduced significantly. But yes, that's what I can say about the alternative energy sources and what the country is doing on the national level. Yeah.
Right. Thanks very much, Adjoa. Emmanuel, as we wrap this up, is that really the way to go? For many, having surplus energy sources is always a great idea, isn't it? Is the government ready to support its citizens to make sure that at some point, sooner than later, Ghana has more than enough energy available?
All right, thanks once again. So Ghana as a country is making a lot of efforts towards the realization of the 10% energy mix that Adjoa spoke about. We had that target around for 2020. We're not able to do it. And so now there has been a lot of effort that has been put in place. We all know the benefit of solar when it comes to its cost reflective, its cost saving to businesses. So let me say more or less small and medium scale businesses. They stand a lot to gain for it. The other benefit of it is that In our country, there are some part of the country that are not connected to the national grid. They are in the hinterland. Some of them are in the areas where the grid cannot be connected to. Those are areas that can make use of the solar. And so if you have a renewable energy component in your energy mix, like say 10%, then what it means is that it will be very affordable for people to make use of it. It also shows that you have an energy mix that guarantees energy security, because you have hydro, you have thermal, and then you have renewable. Among these three, the thermal becomes the most expensive, followed by the hydro. The cheapest among them becomes the solar. And so anytime that you are making efforts more in solar, then it means that you want your citizens to benefit more. The issue I just spoke about is about the upfront cost when it comes to renewables. And that is something that I think the government should be able to put a policy in place to reduce, or let me say subsidize people that will make use of that in the short term to be able to drive the conversation. I think that would be a good way to go.
I agree. I think that would definitely be a good way to go because, solar energy ultimately becomes more affordable. Thank you very much. Emmanuel Derek Hatche, research and policy analyst at the Institute for Energy Security, that's IES. Also, many thanks. Our DW correspondent in Accra, Ghana, Adjoa Tenkroma Domina. Ghanaians never want to return to the days of dumsor or power blackout. So many lives and businesses were affected. Here's what some people in Accra had to say about the dark days of power blackout.
Some years back, we had this dumsor, and that one, sometimes they told us the time, maybe 6 to 6, and then we could prepare and know what to do, you understand? But now it's not like that. There's nothing like that. They can just take the light when they like. It just goes off anytime. You are not aware, you are not prepared, you see. Sometimes we use our phones, but because we're not aware, now my phone is off and I have to depend on this little candle here.
So looking at the current debt that we have accumulated as a country, pending the restructuring that is still ongoing, I doubt whether government can meet the demands of the independent power producers. The best thing that government will need to do is to renegotiate with them.
How much is my salary set? My salary is 1,000 cedis in a month. And if I'm using 1,000 cedis to buy prepaid in a month, how much am I going to spend? What if I have kids? How much am I going to spend on my kids too? It's not easy. This prepaid, they have to do something about it. At least they should bring the card back. 100 cedis a month, we will manage it. But this one, 2 days, 4 days, 200 cedis. Why? No, please talk to them because it's serious. It's serious. It's really killing us.
When you make purchases, you realize that every now and then the prices keep on rising. When you ask, they say that the adjustment from the ECG, that 14% and the subsequent 2% has necessitated that increases, and therefore we have to factor in those things so that they will not be kept out of business. Yeah, so I would say that the price of electricity is very high and it's affecting businesses. For instance, if I buy credit for my business, it used to last about 30 or 35 days, but the same amount that I used to buy and which lasted for that time, now it lasts for only 21 to 22 days. It tells us that something has to be done about it. Otherwise, if it continues this way, it will affect a lot of businesses and a lot of progress will not be made in the country.
Every first week in a month, if you buy the prepaid, you are deducted like 15 cedis plus from the money that you bought. So if like I bought 50 cedis, I'll end up getting 35 cedis instead of the 50 cedis. And it can last you for like at most like 5 days, which is very bad. So you end up buying more and more all the time. And in recent news, we hear that there are debts at the energy sector, which if whatever they are saying is true and they don't work on it, it means that we're going to have power issues in the coming days. So we're going to pay more and get less, or we will not even get the light at all, because if that issue is not resolved, it means that the suppliers would cut supply with us and who knows what that's going to mean. So they really have to do something about it, honestly.
Across Africa, countries are trying to balance energy access with affordability while grappling with old infrastructure, mismanagement, and ballooning debts. And yet, energy is the backbone of development. Without it, businesses stall, hospitals falter, and young people lose opportunities. So what's the way forward? Is it more investment in renewables, better regulation and accountability, or fresh partnerships across the continent? What do you think? Please share your thoughts on our Facebook page, DW Africa. Listen to us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to follow and subscribe to our DW Africa YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. This episode was co-produced and edited by Isaac Mugabe, and I am Eddie Micah Jr. Thanks for listening.
DW, made for minds.